Hi friends, I'm in O'Neill Regional Park, and after a month of having, this is the prototype, actually the first out in the wild, Sparks Overland rooftop cabin. Now it's been in my garage for the last month, mainly because I've been traveling all over the place, and then I recently just moved. So today is really the first day getting this thing out into the out in the wild a little bit. Guess this really doesn't count, but it's a park, but whatever. Anyways, first time cracking this thing open. So what I'd like to do is kind of give you a first glance at this rooftop cabin by Sparks Overland. And from playing around with it, first impressions, this is pretty darn cool. Now, what separates this from a lot of the, well, actually all the other rooftop tents out there is this actually has, as you're going to find out here in a moment, hard walls and double pane windows. So what that translates to, if you've ever been in a camping environment with windy, with a lot of wind, this could be quiet as heck. Another big benefit with something like this is that summertime, you know, we've been talking about the Zero Breeze Mark II and the EcoFlow Wave 2 air conditioner that we've been testing out this summer. With something like this, as you'll see on the front of it, there's actually a couple ports, or actually there they are right there. Although they aren't big enough, so technically we'd have to tool around with them to get them to fit the 4-inch pipes for the either of the AC units there. But anyways, so you can run the AC units, and I think even the Zero Breeze, being that 2200 BTU unit there, is going to cool that very well, because with those hard-sided walls, and the walls are actually about, I think about 3/4 to an inch thick, though, so that's going to give you a lot more R value than your typical rooftop tent. So from an AC, from a thermal standpoint, in the summer months, it's going to take a lot less energy to cool that thing down. Now, from a winter standpoint, wow, this is going to get really exciting, because now granted, my planter, I have a 2 kilowatt diesel heater from Planner on the front of this thing, and that has always done very well with even my the fabric rooftop tents that I had before. You just set the thermostat and off to the races you go. With this, that diesel heater is going to have to work a lot less to be able to heat this. And so this is actually pretty cool. Now, how this thing works is, hold on. Now, how this thing works is you have, now right now, I just have this hardwired. You can see it going out of the unit right there. And I have it plugged into a 12-volt cigarette lighter right here. Now, ultimately, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug that, or hardwire that, into my Red Arc Red Vision and just control that through my phone, so I don't have to mess around with having to put that wire out each time that I get out the location. But anyways, what happens, then you have a remote. So by using the Red Arc, that would bypass the remote completely. And what would happen is, so when you raise this up, because once it's down, which I'll show you here momentarily, it's actually quite low profile. I think it's like 6 inches or something like that. Anyways, on each end, the front and back, you have these scissor lifts that with the hydraulic that you can see right there. Just got a bug flew in my mouth. Anyways, and the hydraulic move that up. And then, which is pretty cool, because then what happens is you have the end pieces that's the only thing that you have to do. You have to climb up inside this thing, and you have these 2 latches, which again, I'll show you here in a moment, that you just drop it down, and then there's a lock right over here and a lock right over here that you kind of pop it up, and it keeps that locked into place. But as you can see, this is, the walls are pretty darn solid. Now, if you get up inside here, okay, so it is, now if you've had like a wedge style clamshell tent, it's pretty much very similar floor plan as that in terms of space. Now, where this really shines, unlike a clamshell tent, let me climb up in here. So a few things that hang out. So with a clamshell tent, normally this would be going down at an angle, and you would really realistically only have right up in this area is kind of the usable space where you can actually sit up, stand up, well, not really stand up, but do whatever you want in here. With this, obviously, and here's something else I absolutely love already. Even with all my other rooftop tents. One of the things that I always do is usually in the evenings, I'll usually sit up and I'll work. And you kind of have to makeshift and try to set yourself up a seat where you can actually lean up against the wall. This is a rock. I mean, this is really, really solid here. So, leaning up, doing my work, this is fantastic. Now, this window right here over on the back side of this here, this, as you can see, double pane. These are those latches that hold the end pieces up after you've raised it. So now, if you haven't noticed, there's a screen here that you can actually take off, and then you have this privacy cover that goes up, or kind of ziplock, or not ziplock, that velcros down. On each end there is a vent port, and there are those two ports. Now, one thing I did notice here is that I have this thing mounted on my trailer backwards. So ultimately what I'm going to do is I'm going to spin. That will ultimately become the front, and for a few reasons. Because when I put my awning out, this is not going to work. My awning folds out this way, so I need to get that over here, and I can continue using my awning. Now, one thing I do want to point out, so you have, this is pretty cool. Now, mind you, this is meant to have a dual access. So if you are mounting this on a vehicle that has a sunroof, you have this hatch that allows you to go down through. Now this is gonna be pretty cool, because the gears are already turning as far as, now ultimately, again, this will be up in the front, but I'm almost visualizing, putting a cooler, or putting dirty shoes underneath here, because again, this is just on top of my trailer. So when you get in, I like to get my shoes out of the tent or outside, or from outside, so therefore you don't have any critters crawling in there and this and that, and keep your shoes out of the elements. So I'm almost thinking it'd be pretty cool to utilize this, because I don't need an access point here, but where I may put shoes or additional storage that when we're out camping and so forth. And so, yeah, pretty cool stuff. Yes, zip that, or get that down into place, and boom. Then you have that mattress part that kind of folds over then. Let's take a look. So this window up on that, which this is going to be, again, in the back of the unit ultimately. So this is a fixed window. And then you have this big, beefy, now this is the screen, and again, the privacy cover that comes along with this one. Now, if I could get into my pants here, my pocket, I have a remote here someplace. Okay, now you want to see something cool. This, I thought was pretty slick. Okay, so watch on these ends here, and I'm going to, if I hit the right button, yeah, there we go, look at that. So you have strip lights that go along the sides of this here that illuminate this really well. Now, it is pretty warm inside here right now because we're parked right into the sun. But that window right there, and then of course you have this big old space right here that would normally allow breeze coming through here. But obviously with this beginning to, the sun's starting to hit there, so that's starting to cook up. But yeah, anyways, so this is first impressions. This is pretty stinking cool. Now, raising it up, you have the remote, as I mentioned, that right now today, until I get it wired through my red arc, you have to press down the button, and it takes about a minute, 30 seconds for this thing to fully, for the hydraulics to push it up. But going back to this tent is actually pretty darn cool. I've been waiting to play around with this thing here for the last month. But again, traveling to Arizona Texas, Alabama, and then getting back in the last 2 weeks have been absolutely buried with moving around and so forth. So I've been really itching to get out there and play around with this. But hard walls, I don't know how many times we've been in situations where the wind was just howling so bad and it made it difficult for anybody to be able to sleep. Obviously with this, hard-sided walls, boy, this really, really nice in windy conditions and so forth. But what do you think? Leave a comment down below. All right, friends, that is it. This is just meant to be a first impression because, as I mentioned, I was really itching to get out and play around with this thing. So you're going to be seeing a lot more of this tent out in the wild as we further kind of throw it in the belly of the beast and test this out even further. But what do you think? Leave a comment down below. Do you like the idea of the hard walls? Let me know.